Welcome to Week Dependent Woman, a podcast where we, Regina Bernardo,
Naya Jorgensen,
and Jaeunsubhakij,
make our statements on life by sharing stories, advice, perspectives, and laughs. Yes, the title is a misnomer, and while we're still working on the strength thing, we're happy to depend on each other as life goes on. So what's actually really interesting about the three of us is that we each have like a different artistic, or at least like a main artistic
not that
interest.
interesting.
I think it is interesting.
We're not like other girls.
No, it's just I think it's interesting because like it all kind of fits in together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like these
Parallels.
they're like specific passions that like complement each other. It's not just like I like ceramics and I like carpenting, you know? Okay, those are actually okay.
Dude, do we live in Nazareth and like
I was trying to think of passions that weren't our own, but yeah. Anyway, how did you guys first fall in love with your passion? And what is your passion? Tell us.
Joy, you go first.
I always feel really gross when I say it, but my passion is theater. I started in theater in like a very conventional way just because I was in like church choir and stuff. And our church choir like puts on the nativity play every single year, so that was like kind of how I first started doing theater. And then my sister was in a production of Annie when she was in like 3rd grade, and I was too young to like audition for it at the time, but I like got to go to her rehearsals and like sit and watch, and like I watched her performance. And then the first real show I ever did was called Rats.
Is it like cats but rats?
No.
Oh my god, stop. It's a nightmare.
It's the story of the Pied Piper. And how, like, rats overcame the town. It's a musical, and it's the worst musical ever.
You obviously haven't seen Cats.
I have. And, like, I knew that I really liked to sing, and, like, I always thought I wanted to be a singer. I didn't think I was going to want to act. But I really liked performing. And then in 6th grade, I did my first musical, which was Thoroughly Modern Millie. And I just, like, I fell in love with it because it was such a cool thing to be part of such a huge production. And, like, I had, like, there were really talented 8th graders who I looked up to. And, like, honestly, I found some of my best friends from that show. And I don't know, like, from there I kind of knew that I wanted to pursue it. Like, I knew from 6th grade that I was going to want to pursue theater in college. And then just as I got older, doing all, like, the shows at SAS and getting involved with, like, the community, I fell in love with, like, theater and, like, beyond theater, just acting in, like, any capacity. And I still love music and dance. Yeah.
What about you, Naya? How did you fall in love with the pen?
Oh, gross.
I've never not been a writer, which is, again, I think that's a cliche thing for writers to say, or actually I don't know if it is, but it feels like it, right? It feels like a cliche thing. Apparently my mom would always read me poetry and stories when I was a baby, and even before I could write with my hands, I would dictate stories to my mom and she'd write them down.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, I don't know when I officially, like, declared that, like, this is my passion in life and it's what I'm gonna do, because I remember there were times in my childhood where, like, I was like, I'm going to be a chef when I grow up, for no reason, having never cooked. But eventually I accepted that, like, writing was the thing. And, yeah, it's just kind of been that way ever since. I think the first thing I remember writing is my older cousin Ethan, who I always looked up to so much when I was a kid, and still do, wrote the story for school about 2 cars named Car and Sam. And I thought it was the best thing. And so I wrote a bunch of stories about Car and Sam, which means technically the first thing I ever wrote with my own hand, and illustrated, was fanfic. Yeah, except they were, like, square. Anyway, yeah, so I wrote Car and Sam fanfic for a long time.
That's so cute.
Yeah, and yeah.
Actually, I was thinking about it the other day, and I think the first time I had ever experienced film was in 5th grade. I came into class late for some reason, and we had just gotten these, like, new iPads, you know? And we were doing this project that was, like, talking about some story. And so we had to pull up iMovie on the iPad and, like, record ourselves just, like, talking. And I remember my teacher being super clear. He was like, you can't, like, stop the recording. He was like, just keep it recording because you can, like, edit it later, right? But I didn't understand that. So I would just, like, record and then, like, re-record and then just, like, do it from different angles. And my teacher was so confused. He was like, I mean, I guess you can do it that way, but, like, you can just sit there and just, like, you know, do it, like, this one way. And I was like, No.
She's breaking the mold.
No. I think the first like real video I made that I wanted to show other people was this goodbye video for friends that I had who were like moving to Japan.
Aww.
And it was like I like went around school and I made teachers like say goodbye to them and like their friends, and it was like a big surprise. Sweet. And then they ended up doing it for me too, and I just didn't know. So it was a really like fun thing.
We actually like Weak Dependent Women got formed on set for one of Regina's films.
Wow.
It was this film called Match where Joy and some other person I don't remember are the main characters and fall in love. And the film starts with me breaking up with Joy.
Yes.
Oh my god, Joy playing a strong bisexual lead.
I mean...
That's queer o'clock. Yeah, and we had to do the scene like a million times because Regina didn't give me any direction, so we just did it.
Excuse me.
She told me how to do it.
Excuse me, my cameraman was literally like going through withdrawals. Like I had other things to do with.
Fair enough. So we did it a bunch of times, and she literally told me to improv it, so it was just me being like, yeah, I guess this isn't the right time, and Joy looking sad, and we did it a shit ton of times. And so it was like, me and Joy would just like chat in between takes, and then like, oh, you know what it was? We were talking about it because we actually were talking about our passions that day, and like, we all need to pursue our passions, like, promise me you'll like do this later in life, and be like strong, independent, and Regina jokingly went, no, I'm a weak, dependent woman, and we were like,
Yeah, I remember us talking that like, you know, in the future, like Naya will write some story and then like Joy will act in it and I'll like direct it, you know, like that's what I meant by having a compliment, just so everyone knows. But yeah so speaking of the future, where do you see yourselves in like 10 years with regards to like the passion that you have now? Because I know definitely 10 years ago I do not think I would have been this invested in like film and stuff. I mean, yeah, exactly. So I hadn't even like come across, you know, like I really like
9-year-olds don't have thoughts.
If you're a 9-year-old listening to this, how can you process anything we're saying right
Head empty, no thoughts.
Empty.
But yeah, like when I was 9, like the closest interaction I had with a film was like watching Ratatouille in theaters. Like,
Watching Ratatouille?
No,
oh my god,
seriously.
your first experience is rats.
No.
Oh my god.
We just come up with more connections every day.
Okay, so Reg, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
10 years from now? Oh my gosh, that's like so scary to think about.
I mean, are we talking about what we think is realistic or like what we hope?
Okay, what we hope. 10 years from now, I'll be 29. I would hope to be involved in like the cinematic world somehow, even if it's not like the biggest thing, because I'm not going to be going to a school that like feeds kids into like Hollywood, you know what I mean? But if it comes down to like making ads for a company, or like I don't know, even just making my own short films, like I would still definitely want to be doing this. I feel like it's one of those hobbies that can easily start to get away from you if you start thinking about how like you don't have enough time, how like it isn't like your main gig, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I definitely know that like whatever happens in 10 years, I just want this to still be a part of my life. That's my vague hope, because 10 years from now, if I'm listening to this, like I don't want to cry, so but yeah, okay, but like ideally it'd be pretty sick if I was like an assistant director. What about you, Naya?
10 years from now, well, I do hope to go to graduate school and get my MFA in creative writing. So, and there are a lot of really great programs out there. I don't want to jinx it by saying the one, but anyone who's a writer already knows what the dream program is for everyone. But like you said, I'm going to be writing, and I intend for it to eventually be my career.
If I'm not broke.
Waitressing. I think it's easier to have like a specific milestone for theater.
Yeah, I definitely do, but I'm like trying to talk myself out of it, not because I don't want the dream, but because I think that success in theater is often only defined as Broadway. And I don't think that's true. I think that you can be in like a regional like theater show and have it be as fulfilling or more fulfilling than being on Broadway. But I definitely like would love to be in a Broadway show. Like the dream would be to be a part of an original Broadway cast just of a new show, just because I think that process is so fascinating to me, like doing its first runs in like DC or, you know, wherever the major hub is going to be in the next few years, and then moving it to the Broadway stage, doing all those rehearsals and getting to almost like devise it as it's going along and then seeing it in its final stages. Like I would love to, you know, take over for any other show, but the dream would be to be in an OBC. But honestly, like any way that I can still be doing theater is the dream. If anything, I just want to be like making an impact with my art for someone else and be like just making meaningful art.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
being like, yeah.
You know, it's funny that we all are like toning our dreams down, because I know that we all like want more.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
and it's so, you know, we all definitely want to be like up there in our fields, but like I think that it's very healthy that we would all be happy with less, because it's not less.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I've always wondered if I would be still as content and still as happy if I like never got famous or never got like recognition in my field and was just always doing like,
right,
or like if I never even got a job, you know, because that's so likely for me that like I will just never get booked and I will have to like just do some other day job.
Yeah. You know, part of me is even like scared of fame. I don't know. I guess like once you get famous, like fame comes with criticism, and that's so terrifying. Like I've experienced that so much already, that like just knowing that it can happen to you on a larger scale. And I'm like, I'm not even the one in what I'm making, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like I'm kind of behind the scenes, and I'm sure to be a famous director you could still walk down the street and people won't recognize you, you know? But it's still just like terrifying to put what you make out there, and just know that once it gets big, that means that there are more people who will hate it,
right,
and who will like.
But there are also more people who will love it, you know?
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Like the hate, like you feel that way more, because even like I was thinking about it the other day. I like could just be watching like a random TV show on like Netflix with my friends and be like, we'll literally say, we're like, oh my gosh, the acting is so bad. Like, you know, oh, this is so, you know, like the acting is so bad, whatever. And I'm like, holy crap, like they're trying their best, like, you know, like they're really out there like acting their butts off, and I'm just sitting at home criticizing it, and that could be me someday, because like as much as I want it's that quote, like to get the rewards of something you must submit to the mortifying ordeal of being known, you know, to get the appreciation and the love and like the recognition that comes with things getting big. Because I think in terms of fame, like our hope for it at least is like it's getting big because people like it. It's not just like the fame of people knowing, but like appreciating the work that we've done.
Yeah.
Like I've seen threads upon threads of like BuzzFeed, Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, like crapping on all these like things that I'm like, wow, people actually put so much work into that.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about how like there's so much effort put into these things, but it's just not appreciated. And I feel like, you know, with shows that aren't the best show or that are watched because they're bad, like they keep going because they're watched, you know, like people are still so entertained. So like at the end of the day, these stories are getting told and like this work is being consumed. It's just not in the way that the creators initially intended to, and that's kind of scary. And on that somewhat grim note, that's a wrap on this episode. If it feels like this episode was a bit unfinished, that's because we have a part 2 on this very same topic coming up next week. So thank you so much for joining us, and make sure to stay tuned for that next one. We hope you've enjoyed listening to us, Week Dependent Woman.